Every day, thousands of people go up and down in elevators without giving them a second thought. They're usually safe, efficient, and don't have any creepy features at all. But not this one. In this story, I'll be telling you about an elevator that skips a whole floor and the strange sounds that can be heard coming from it. Welcome back to my channel, where we bring you stories that are truly terrifying. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so that you can be the first to see our new videos. Now, let's get into the video. A long time ago, there was a young woman who worked in a large office building. It was a very tall building with 10 floors. She worked on the 6th floor, and every morning she would take the elevator to work. Usually the elevator was fine, and she had no problems riding it. But occasionally she would hear some strange things coming from the elevator. One day she got into the elevator and pressed the button for the 6th floor. As the elevator went up, she could hear some blood-curdling screams coming from inside the shaft. Obviously she was frightened, and when she stepped out onto the 6th floor, she told her co-workers what she had just experienced. But they didn't believe her. They said that it was probably just some kids playing around, or maybe some construction worker. So she didn't think much of it, and continued on with her day. But the next day, when she rode the elevator, she heard those same screams again. This time, she decided to record the sounds on her phone, and she was shocked at what she heard. As she was waiting for the elevator, she could hear loud banging sounds coming from inside the shaft. Then suddenly the elevator jolted upwards very quickly, and a scream echoed through the shaft. She recorded the sound and showed it to her boss. But he also didn't believe her and just told her to get to work. This happened several times over the next few weeks. But nobody believed her until one day when someone actually saw something. It was late one night and a security guard was making his rounds when he saw something very strange. He saw the elevator go from the 6th floor all the way to the 8th floor without stopping at 7. And when he looked inside the elevator, he saw that there was no one in there. When he reported this to the police, they were skeptical because how could an elevator move by itself? But after hearing more of the details, they decided to investigate. The next day, a group of police officers and technicians came to the building to try and figure out what was going on. They searched the elevator shaft but couldn't find anything. They also checked the wiring, but everything seemed to be working normally. One of the police officers decided to ride the elevator while the technician monitored the cameras. They wanted to see if they could capture whatever was happening on camera, and boy, were they surprised at what they saw. When the elevator reached the 7th floor, the officer saw a shadowy figure standing in the corner. He quickly pressed the button for the 6th floor, and the elevator started to go down. But before they reached the 6th floor, the elevator jolted upwards, and the officer screamed in terror. The camera feed cut out for a moment, and when it came back on, the officer was gone. The technician quickly called the other officers and told them what had just happened. They immediately rushed to the elevator, and when they opened the doors, they found the officer on the floor, unconscious. They quickly took him to the hospital where he was treated for shock, but he never regained consciousness. After this, the building was evacuated, and the police set up a perimeter around the building. They didn't want anyone else getting hurt, so they decided to keep everyone away from the building until they could figure out what was going on. But the strange things didn't stop there. Every night the police would hear screams and banging coming from inside the elevator shaft. They would go inside and search, but they never found anything. One night they decided to set up a camera inside the elevator shaft, and they were shocked at what they saw. In the video, you can see the elevator going from the 6th floor to the 8th floor. You can also see a shadowy figure standing in the corner. The figure seems to be watching the camera, and when the camera gets too close, it disappears. The plea who baffled because they couldn't figure out what this figure was. They searched the entire city, but couldn't find anyone who matched the description of the figure. They even checked missing persons reports, but nothing matched. The case went cold, and everyone forgot about it until one day when a young woman came forward. A few years had passed since the incident, and the building was still empty. No one dared to go inside because they were afraid of what might happen. But a young woman who was studying paranormal activity decided to move in. She set up cameras all throughout the building and waited for something to happen. And boy, was she surprised at what she saw. The footage shows the elevator moving from the 6th floor to the 8th floor and then back down again. You can also see the shadowy figure standing in the corner. But there is something else in the video that is even more shocking. The young woman noticed that the figure seemed to be interacting with the camera. It was moving its hands as if it was trying to push the camera away. At first she thought that it was just a trick of the light, but then she realized that it was actually communicating with her. She began talking to the camera and the figure seemed to respond. It was as if the figure was trying to tell her something. She kept talking to the camera and eventually she figured out that the figure was trying to tell her that it was trapped in the elevator. She didn't know how to help at first, but then she had an idea. She went to the local library and did some research on the history of the building. She wanted to see if anyone had died in the building and if they could have something to do with the elevator. And what she found was shocking. It turns out that a young woman had died in the elevator. She was on the 7th floor when the elevator suddenly malfunctioned and went to the 8th floor. When the elevator opened, she fell out and plummeted to her death. The young woman felt sad for the ghost, because it seemed like it was just trying to get people's attention so that they could help it move on. She went back to the apartment and talked to the camera some more. This time she told the ghost that she knew it was trapped and that she was going to help it. She didn't know how, but she was determined to figure it out. The next day she went to the local church and spoke to the priest. He was a kind man who was willing to help. He came to the building with her and they performed an exorcism. They didn't know if it would work, but they had to try. After the exorcism, the building was finally free of the ghost. The young woman was happy because she had helped the ghost move on. She continued to live in the building, and she never had any problems again. The end. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Thanks for watching. Bye.